Hello guys, David Vose here. Well, it's a beautiful day. There's a little sunshine today, and maybe some of this snow will melt, but boy, we've had a lot of snow. Hope you're having a wonderful day where you guys are. Well, yesterday I was sent by a good friend. I was sent a video by, I think his name is Stephen Denoon. And I know a lot of you have a lot of respect for Stephen, and I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's a good guy. And I don't mean to be critical of anyone, and I hate to have to be critical on this, but I think it's an important thing for us to point out that idea that he's promoting, that he says he believes in. He says it's not doctrine, and I understand that. And everybody has theories, and there's nothing wrong with that. He's a good guy. But I want you guys to understand that the theory of a flat earth or a hollow earth isn't true. We can prove that. And so I want to point out a few things. You know, like I say, I love Stephen very dearly, but this is just information for all of you to think about. There's reasons why we don't want to get off into these theories, because many of them are connected to aliens or German Nazis or Vril Society, cultic ideas like Jehovah's Witnesses, and they don't believe in heaven. It's all, you know, just physical, or some people just believe in spiritual and they don't believe in the physical because they don't have the proper balance and they don't understand it's not about materialism. Now, this is a picture that Stephen Denoon was showing, saying that it was the Nazi picture that they had mapping. It's a picture or a map of the inner earth. Number one, from what I'm told, there's no proof of that. This map, there's some, I'll read you something about this here in a minute to show you this isn't just my opinion, but it appears that that map is a map of Antarctica without the ice or something. Now, we'll get back to that. Now here is what purports to be some, you know, discovery and some writings and documents that they've found that proves that the Nazis believed in this, and you see the picture there of the inner earth. But again, it's a distortion of what's really true. Now, I understand Stephen didn't look into this real deeply, and most people wouldn't. He also mentioned Admiral Byrd, but again, that's been distorted. Admiral Byrd went to the South Pole and the North Pole, but he never said he went into the inner earth. That's just fabricated. And so this map is fabricated in this sense. It's not about the inner earth. It's about looking for what was going on. Maybe some of them may have believed a little bit that maybe they would find an inner earth, but did they? And is this a map of it? No, that's a map of Antarctica without the snow. If you look on the top of that map, you see clearly it's a picture of Antarctica. And he actually had this on his video, Stephen Denoon, and he didn't notice that. So there's other things, and I'll read you a little bit right here. Look at this. Here's an article that says, Secret Maps of the Third Reich. Did the Nazis find the entrance to the inner earth? Well, it says, not long ago we discovered a map of the Third Reich in which there are several secret passages depicted which are used by German U-boats to access mysterious underground regions, as well as a complete map of both hemispheres and the mysterious kingdom of Agartha. What do you think about the hollow earth? Is it possible? Well, it says, the possibility that the earth is hollow and it can be accessed through the North and the South Poles, and that secret civilizations flourished within it, has spurned the imagination of peoples throughout centuries. I want you to pay attention just how deceptive everything in the you find is. Now I'm reading another article that's going to tell you that what they said wasn't true. But notice that they're actually going to say things that are not true in the very same breath. He goes on to say it might just turn out to be true after all, that somehow and somewhere, it might be, see, that there is access which leads to an entirely different world. We don't know. There's never been any proof for this. And I'm going to show you proof that it's not true. But notice this. It says this evidence of a hollow earth is found in the history of countless ancient civilizations. And again, that's not true. That's like people reading the Bible and saying, oh, the Bible believes in the flat earth. No, it doesn't. And I've done videos on this. It's simply not true what people are saying. And they're misapplying the Bible. It says the Babylonian hero Gilgamesh visited his ancestor Utnapishtim in the bowels of the earth. Well, I'm going to cover this in depth here. In these ancient books like the Sumerian tablets and the Akkadian tablets and the Epic of Gilgamesh, it talks about, just like our Bible, Sheol, which is under the earth. But it's not talking about a literal hollow earth. It's talking about a spiritual, symbolic, demonic realm, not in the physical, material universe. We'll talk about that. Orpheus tries to rescue Eurydice from the underground hell. Yeah, the Bible talks about the Titans who were thrown into Tartarus. And it literally means under the earth. And there may have been kingdoms under the earth. Because where any parable is made, it has to be true literally if it's going to be esoterically true. However, if these demons were so smart, they would have gotten out of that prison by now. If it's just some place under the earth. They're so smart, they're making UFOs. They're not locked in a physical prison. The demons are interdimensional. That's how they put it. They're spirits, friends. And hell is in another consciousness outside of the consciousness of the physical reality. And it's considered lower than the physical consciousness we have, subconscious. And the higher consciousness is higher consciousness. You have subconscious, you have physical consciousness, and higher consciousness. So there is the heavens, the earth, and there is hell. They are not referring to material places. There is no place in the sky where Jesus is living on another planet or something like this. And this is why we have to debunk this, because there are no other worlds other than the world of man. In our creation, we create with our word, with our faith. We live in our world that we make. We manifest. So it talks about the Egyptian underworld, the Buddhists believing in Agartha, and all of that. But it says most of us are familiar with the idea that the Nazis explored everything they could on the planet in their ultimate quest for global domination. They hoped that somewhere on the globe they would discover something that would ultimately help them achieve their goal. Many people firmly believe the inner earth is nothing more than tales and myths. There are those who believe that not only does the hollow earth exist, there is enough evidence to prove that these arguments, like the video posted below, which, we're not going to look at that, alleges a map that dates back to 1940s belonging to the Third Reich, displaying the direct passageways used by the German U-boats and going to the inner kingdom of Agartha. But according to the website, ourhollowearth.com, there is a copy of the translated letter which was supposedly sent from a man, supposedly, right? It's always supposedly, called Karl Unger, aboard the U-boat 209, which was commanded by Heinrich Broda, detailing that they had arrived at the inner earth and would not return. Friends, there's no proof of this. Just like people telling you that Admiral Byrd said and made they found it after he was dead. Somebody made a lot of money on it. It's a hoax. While many people consider these claims absurd and ludicrous, many indicate that there is some truth somewhere in there, but that the details have been altered in some way. If we compare the map seen in the video and from the alleged U-boat 209 and the charts made by Trioline cartographer and artist Henrik C. Brennan, they're artists, friends, for the National Geographic Society in the 1960s, we will notice that the continent of Antarctica is displayed without its layer of ice. It is not a map of the inner Earth. So, now, that is something you must understand, that most of the stuff you hear is just speculation or theories. Most of it might even be a hoax. And you have to be very careful, friends. Now, the Vikings called the Hollow Earth Valhalla. What is Valhalla? Remember, V and B can be interchangeable in Yiddish or in that language. So like the word, today we say Chevron, the gas station. But that comes from Hebron. Sometimes the H is a ch, Chibron or Chiv, So V and B is interchangeable. So Vala is ball. So Valhalla. That is literally, in English, a hollow ball. That's what Valhalla means. Now get this. Shambhala, up in the Tibetan, the Indian religions, talk about Shambhala. Well, there you go. Valhalla. It's not a name. It's not a language. It's a transliteration of the root words to all words today. Bull, Bel, Baal, the bull. Why would the bull, Taurus, be a bull? Well, you heard of a Taurus field? When you have 12 houses, you go all the way around and you completed the ball. But Aries completes it as the first of the months, beginning in spring. However, when a certain time comes that all the time has to be caught up to get the calendar back on track, they'll throw a 13th month in. The 13th month, when it is finished, there is a holy day. And that is the great eternal round, the 3,600 years of the czar. The Sumerians called them czars, or a rulership, something that has ruled because they were referring back to Osiris, who is the king, like the Greek Zeus. Now, that's very interesting. I want to stick to this point for just a second because there's something I want to tell you about that. So normally we have 12 months, and that's how many months are in a year, and that's why we have 12 tribes of Israel and all of this. But ever so often, to get time caught up, you add another month. You make a 13th month. So there's only 12 months. There isn't 13. But occasionally you throw in another month. Now, the reason for that is because we've got to go forward. If you add another month, then you don't come out and the beginning starts in Aries, but the beginning now is in Taurus. Why? Because we're progressing. We're going towards Taurus, not towards Aquarius. We're not going into the age of Aquarius. Unless you are the occult and you got everything upside down and backwards, you're trying to go back into the darkness under the rule of Saturn, or Set, which is the ruler of Saturn, is the ruler over Aquarius. But we're not going to be ruled over by Satan. We're going to be ruled over by his brother, Jesus, the only begotten of the Father, who is not the Diablo or the double, but the reality, the light. Now, what I think is interesting is, I've been saying, something could happen this spring, because I can't go into it here. This is going to be a long video. It's going to be too much information. But we've talked about this in many other videos, why I believe that the tribulation is going to happen this year, Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily going to happen. That's my opinion. I think we get a pretty good idea that it's going to start the tribulation very soon. Now, what I've been saying is it would probably start in the spring, because it's 3.5 years, and it ends in the final destruction or Armageddon, which is usually in the fall. And this is what has been going on for thousands of years. They've been, all the times when the temple was destroyed, it's always in the month of Av. Well, that's interesting. Av is December, not November, which is one of the holidays. But there is a holiday, the Jewish holiday in December. It's Hanukkah, right? But what is the event that happens December? It's the birth of Saturnalius. And what did they do? It was the time of the great orgy, the purge. You've seen the movies, right? When there's chaos and violence. Remember, the moon shall be turned into blood. No more law. Law and order is gone. Chaos reigns. The Joker, the anonymous face, and they're gonna be the dark side that's gonna take over, and they're gonna run rampant, and they're gonna have all kinds of fun, and there's not gonna be any law and order. It's chaos. And they used to have this holiday, and it started somewhere, I think, like the 17th of December and went all the way to December 25th, which is the winter solstice. That was this great holiday of just havoc and mayhem. You've heard about Joker and the mayhem. All this goes back to this. That's the end of the world, the great judgment, the great apostasy. But why would it be in December? Because remember, there isn't just 1,260 days, which would end in the fall holidays around October 1st, to whatever particular day it falls on in our calendar this year. But remember, it's wait unto the 1,335 days, according to the angel speaking to Daniel. Happy is he that waiteth and cometh unto the end of the 1,335 days. That's an actual 75 days longer than the 1,260. What is 75 days? Well, 30 days in a month, that's 2 months and 15 days. So if somewhere around the beginning of October is when this holiday ends, and the Day of Atonement and the final trumpets and the Feast of Booths, it's all ended somewhere around the end of September, the 1st of October. That leaves you all the month of October, all the month of November, and then a couple of weeks in December. And that's when this holiday comes, and that's the end of the world, the mayhem. So I think we're doing pretty good on these dates and understanding this. However, I was telling you that would mean that the tribulation would begin around Easter time. Well, that's also around Passover time, except that this year, the Jewish Passover is a month later, in April, not in March 21st or the 1st of spring, but it's about a month later. They do that as an intercalation month. That's the 13th month. So it's interesting that this particular Passover comes a month later, because the true spring is going to occur, but it's not going to be in Aries. When Jesus came, we got an extra month. And now we're about to go in the age of Taurus, and it's going to be the true spring equinox, because we're going to be moving up. We're going forward, not backwards. So when I said something could happen Easter, they've changed it and moved it up a month, so it could be a month later, because Passover this year comes April 22nd to the April 30th. So that's about a month later than normal. So we might have an extra month in there. But sometime around Passover, I think, it's very likely our tribulation will begin. So 360 degrees in the circle is a ball. All of these words are very, very sacred words. The Buddhist Tibetan religion people, they are Israelites. They were scattered there. They were taken captive into Assyria. And from there, they became the Scythians. They went to the crossed the Caucasus Mountains, became the Caucasians. But there was a group that went with Dan, that went up from the tribe of Dan, went to Tyre, defeated that, and then renamed it to Sidon, or Sidon. And from there, they got on the boat, and they went all over the world, naming everything after Dan. Swedan, and Dansmark, and the Danube, and the Danister, and the Lundan, and all of these Dans. They made their sacred home in the center there of Europe, which today we call Bavaria. Bavaria is the place that they used to call Swabiland. And so they were trying to go back to the original 10 Germanic tribes, the Fatherland and the Motherland, that they were trying to restore, the White Brotherhood. That was not the teachings of Madame Blavatsky. The Aryan race was a term that she used in her book, but it meant all the race of man. It didn't mean white people. And it's interesting because sometimes they call them the Indo-Europeans. That's what an Aryan is. Well, in India, they weren't really actually white. But see, some people think that there was this group of tall white men that went to India and conquered it. Well, that is Genghis Khan. Khan is the word king. And he was a white man with red hair, and he led a group of Germans all the way to Japan. And this is one of the tribes of Israel, because with Dan was Judah, Levi, some of the Levites, some of Asher, and another tribe. So they had a group of a representative of the 10 tribes. But there were, and so this is where we get Tartaria. This is where they conquered Genghis Khan and these. Remember, we always say in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Did you know that Columbus was Jewish? Did you know that he filled up his boat with Jews when he went? And did you know that Spain expelled all the Jews in 1492? Where did they go? They got in a boat because, you see, they were using them as bankers because they could lend money. But once they lent a bunch of money, they became rich. They would evict them from the kingdom. Well, it's not what you really think. They had a relationship going. The kings got rich off the Jews until the Jews finally took them over. But the Jews planted their political kingdom wherever they went. All right, but who are the Jews? They are a group of people of 12 tribes. Remember, Jacob had 4 different women that he had children with. Some of them were slaves, some of them were black, some of them were brown, some of them were white. Israel is not white. Israel is the 12, all around in circumference, all. So many peoples in America were the lost tribes of Israel. In India, in China, these are Israel. But the Germans got into a cult. It was a lie from the devil, and they began to believe that they were Israel. Well, they are. But they didn't understand that they were only one group of Israel that was there, that followed after and took with them the Judean religion, which is the material understanding. When the Judean peoples, you could call them Judeans or Israelites, from Jesus and Mary Magdalene and the 70 that got on the boat and went to Marseille, France, and started the Knights, and this came down to the Templars. They were protecting the Holy Grail. Some people say they're Jews. That's what they called Sephardic Jews. Well, again, they're using the wrong words. They're not Jews. They're descendants of Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ. And Lazarus, and the 70, who made up the ruling class of that group of people in the Languedoc. They ended up then later on being called Jews, but really, again, all of these individuals are Israel. And there are Israelites in Africa that are very, very dark. They're black. There are very many all around the world, every tribe and every nation and every tongue. And you see there in Revelation chapter 7, it says, I saw and behold a great multitude. What does it say that for? Because Abraham was given a promise. I shall make thy seed a great multitude. Now, read further. Of every nation. From Abraham's loins. So Abraham had Isaac and he had Jacob. Jacob had 4 different wives. And one of them was Joseph with a coat of many colors. And he went down and married the Canaanites. Judah himself married the Canaanite from Tamar, who was a Canaanite that Judah married, and Joshua, who married Rahab. And then there was also Boaz and Ruth, who was a Moabite. There were many different groups, and they were not one color of, but cults begin to believe things. So there was a cult called the Vril Society. They worshiped Satan. They knew exactly what they were doing. Well, they didn't know, but the devil did. The devil made a deal with the Nathan Rothschild, who was of the Vlad the Impaler line, which is the line of the lineage of Judeans from Jeconiah that Charlemagne brought into Europe because they couldn't rule or have supremacy without an ancestor of either through Perez or Zerah. And so they took one from Perez, from Jeconiah. But the Bible itself says, I have rejected you. Take off the signet ring. That line was forbidden. That's the line they're using. That's the line of Antichrist. The wicked prince. It talks about it in the Bible. And I don't know, the world doesn't seem to understand, and I don't think they know anymore, but their prince is the wicked prince. And that's Vlad the Impaler, and that's the Rothschild family. And they took over the banking system, and they ruled the world and made capitals like London or Washington. But really, it was them behind it. Now, that is why you have all of these people going on boats. You know, Dan had boats like the Phoenicians. Well, Dan was married to a Phoenician. Samson is of Judah and of Dan. His father was of Dan. His mother was from Judah. So he was a Judahite and he was a Danite. But he married Delilah from Tyre, from Sidon, where they conquered it. And they went to Crete and they went to Greece. They are the lineage through Samson. They are the divine lineage, the Tuatha De Danans, that went to Greece and then all the way to Ireland and into London. However, the tribe of Dan, apart from Samson, before even Samson, got on boats and went, and they're a different group. So, Valhalla is the ball, or the hollow ball, and it's in the ancient religions. But now, what does it mean, the hollow ball? What does that mean? Remember, we talked the other day about Eden meaning Odin. It's the same word. So, Eden is supposed to be, according to Stephen Danoon, in the hollow earth, inside, and the tree of life is in Eden, in the hollow earth. Well, doesn't that kind of match up with that cave? No, the cave represents the spirit realm, where you die, and then you wait to be incarnated back into this conscious realm. It's a different consciousness. The people that live there, they're not under the earth, but that is a representation. So Eden is not actually in a cave beneath the pyramid, nor is Eden actually in a hollow space under the ground. But Eden is a way that we were before we were incarnated in this physical consciousness we are in here. We talked about the cave called Machpelah at Kirjath Arba, which today is Chevron. We just mentioned that. Heber or Chevron. And that is the place of the four. They think it's up in Palestine. It's actually the four great pyramids. There's one missing where they built Cairo. The four are tombs from before the flood. It's Adam and Eve, or the patriarchs. And then the other latter pyramids that you see, the smaller ones, are individuals like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and so forth, that they would erect to one of the divine beings, which in the Greeks they called them archons, but our Bibles call them patriarchs. Now, we said that there was a tomb. The empty tomb in the Great Pyramid is the tomb of Osiris. And of course, that's where Jesus died, at the place of the skull. It's also where John the Baptist's head was lopped off, because John was an incarnation of Adam. But what is this cave? It's not just a cave. Machpelah means a spinning vortice, or like the center of a sphere that's spinning. So it's the geographical center, the continental center of all the geography is there at Cairo. And that would be literally the Mount Zion, or the top of the mound of Mount Zion. All the land masses and continents is the mountain. And the great abyss is at the bottom of the mountain, or at the bottom of the globe. And it goes deep down inside the ocean. Nobody knows how far, which represents the infinite depths. But Osiris died and went into the Duat, or the Hebrew Sheol, and comes up on the spring equinox as Horus, or the hours, the Ors. And he rose on the horizon, just as his brother Set, the sun sets on the other side. Jesus rises on the side of Aries. Well, that's the spring equinox. And that's when Jesus rose from the dead. But where was that star, Orion, before it came up on the horizon? Well, it was in the Duat, or in Sheol, or the underworld, Hades. Now, where is the underworld? Where is Hades? It is a spiritual place. When you die, you're no longer conscious. You don't live in this conscious realm. And not only are you not in this conscious world, but you're dead and you're waiting to be incarnated again. But you're not in a physical place at all, whether it be under the earth or on the earth or up on a cloud. The heavens only represent higher consciousness. We don't actually go and sit on clouds and play harps up there with the rainbow and unicorns. So what is the cave? Well, certainly it's a tomb. People are buried in caves. But your spirit doesn't stay down in the earth. It's not a materialistic universe. There is no, the Gog of Magog, which is the demonic beings, they're in hell. They're not below the earth. They're in a spirit realm. There are two realms. And people try to understand this today, modern materialists, like these cults, like Jehovah's Witnesses, and many of these Bavarians. They understand this literally. They don't have the sense of it. They think they understand spiritual things, but they don't. They're taking things literally, and they think that the two worlds, physical and spiritual, is actually some other world that you can physically go to. And that the spiritual world, most Christians to this day are following this Arianism, that the spiritual world is some other dimension, and that we can go and live there. The truth is you have a spiritual being within you right now that you're connected with, and you're living in that spiritual realm, in spiritual places, sitting upon thrones, reigning with Christ. But you see, the spiritual realm It is you, and it is a realm, but it is spiritual. It is not physical. So therefore, if you're going to have a physical existence, you would not be living physically in the spiritual realm. But like when you dream, that is like another realm. It isn't physical. You're there. Everything seems real. You can touch the mountains and run and play. But when you become conscious, physically conscious, you're conscious of this world. You go from one world to another through changing your consciousness. And we're going to go from glory into glory, advance, higher and higher, to the glories, just as was done by our Lord. So the Lord Jesus, what is it that he ascended, but that he also descended into the lower regions? It means that in every life, he had to go through all of the regions and get his diploma. He had to descend that he might ascend. And so there it says in that verse we were talking about yesterday, that no one has ascended unto heaven. No one has ever ascended unto heaven but the Son of Man, who is in heaven, who descended into the world. So the Son of Man is the son of Adam. It's saying that humans have to descend before they ascend. That's what we do. We have to die in order to live, Paul says. So the two realms are married. They're one. A man and a woman get married. They're one. They work in harmony. Now, women are not subject to men, but in the physical world, they are. I mean, in the sense of physical things. A woman will ask a man to open a door because he's stronger. The man will go hunting. He will build the house. He will move the rocks. He's heavier. He's stronger. He's got more muscle. A woman is naturally a nurturer because she has a womb and breasts. So she does a lot of cooking and cleaning and feeding the babies, nurturing the babies. This is just physical attributes. Both of those places or realms are important, but the man isn't the king of the home. He goes outside. The woman is inside and she is around the hearth. She's the queen. They're equal, but they're different. So in the universe, we have these two realms, the two sides. We're always going to be in a conscious mind. If we don't have, because being a spiritual conscious being, you're always going to have a conscious physical mind. So you're going to have both consciousnesses. If you don't know or you're not aware of the higher consciousness, then you're only going to be in this conscious mind and you're going to be believing conscious and physical things and thinking and worshiping idols. Not knowing that the idol is only an image of the reality, which is spiritual. So these occultists, because they burned all the books and killed all the people who knew any, they killed all the witches or the wise women, and they killed all the wizards, the wise men. So they didn't know these things. Because these truths were handed on through teachers. And by the way, that's what it means to lay on hands. And if any religion today practices laying on of hands and don't understand and doesn't understand this, then they don't know what they're doing, and therefore they don't have the Holy Spirit. They haven't given the Holy Spirit, because you can't give something you don't have. But the laying on of hands, we talked about this a couple times, and I want to make it more clear here. When the priest would lay his hands upon the goat, he was transferring sin and removing sin. The laying on of hands is a doctrine of Christianity, and it means that when you are a priest or someone who receives forgiveness from Jesus Christ, because Jesus laid his hands on you. This all started with the apostles. They had their heads anointed by Jesus, and his hands was upon them. He literally transferred all of their sins. It was taken from that person the moment the hands was laid upon them by the priest. And all of the sin went to the altar, and Jesus partook of it and died for that sin. So the laying on of hands is the transfer of your sin to the altar for Jesus to save you. And without the laying on of hands, you cannot be saved. But let me tell you some good news. When Jesus laid his hands upon those 12, they went out and laid their hands on others. And now, when you lay your hands on anyone, you are divinely given power through those hands in the name of Jesus to forgive anyone you see. And whosever sins you remit, they are remitted. So, go out there and let's save the world, friends. And let's love one another. And lay our hands upon them and tell them of their forgiveness. And now we just receive it in faith. It was a transferal of their sin to the altar. When the last day comes, the altar will be destroyed. And so will all the sin. In other words, the physical part of it, the outside, the temple will be destroyed. The walls will fall down, as in the case of the temple at Jericho or Jerusalem, because they're the same thing. It's just a symbol of the same thing. The outside's got to come down. Does that mean we're not supposed to be in the conscious or the physical? No, we're going to have a new conscious. One that's married not to folly, but to wisdom. It's going to be a change in the physical, and it's going to be immortal, but it's still going to be the physical. And there'll be a beautiful wedding, and they're going to wear white. They're going to be pure. They're going to be righteous. They're going to have harmony. And the physical, which is the woman, in this case, is going to be submitting, not by force, not by law, but is going to understand that she needs the higher mind to guide her. And it's just a symbol. It doesn't mean women have to have men to guide them, because the Apostle Paul says we should be subject one to another. And just as the woman was made from the man, so every man is from a woman. We're not talking about physical laws. We're not talking about some arbitrary thing or works. We're talking about symbols. And so, what do you do with the woman? Well, she's not as strong as the man, but you give her beautiful jewels, and she's got a braided hair, and she's beautiful. She's not a hard-working slave. She doesn't go out and chop wood. She has creams and oils that she puts on her skin. She's beautiful. She would never have to ever work. She's the queen. Her husband does all that slaving. You can take it both ways. We slave for the queen bee. But when you take this analogy and you try to understand what it means spiritually or esoterically, what we're doing is saying is that we're always going to have a conscious mind. But when that conscious mind stops believing that it's the only mind and finally receives and becomes one with their higher conscious mind, then there's unity. So these materialists are always seeking for an other place called the lower world and another place called the higher world, when in reality they're in one. There is no time and space. Both of them are states of consciousness. Higher consciousness and lower consciousness. The lower consciousness is in a physical maze. It's at the bottom of the elemental scale. It's the heavier part. And remember, it's not like one of them exists and the other one doesn't. The spiritual exists and the physical doesn't. The spiritual is better and the physical is not. They're both equal because energy is transformed into matter, material, and material is then transformed back into energy. They're the same thing. There's only one. The man and the woman are one. Higher consciousness and physical, material consciousness is one. We're the same being. We can live and share and have harmony between the two. So the real world is right here. But what you're looking at in this world is only the outer form. You need to become aware with that world within your mind and become a ruler, have dominion over the earth, the hearth. The woman is the queen or the ruler of the hearth. Well, that's the earth. All of these words, it's also where we get inertia. It's like the middle. And so these things we call planets, or that's the word plane. Are they then flat? No, plane means a level. And so we have 7 planets because there are 7 levels, and those are consciousnesses. So even though we have mother and father, which is only 2 consciousnesses, there is levels in between. It is a science. So they're not understanding the esoteric wisdom. They're looking for a physical world called the world beneath. Because remember, Jesus says, your father's from beneath, my father's from above. Where was Jesus from? They didn't know. We don't know your father. Well, I know, he says, you don't know my father. If you'd know my father, you'd know me. Because you don't see the spiritual. You're the physical. You're unaware. You're unconscious. So the Germans were just like the Pharisees. They were looking for the hollow ball, meaning something within Sheol. But hell is also where we get the word hollow. Very interesting. All of these words, then, if you read them and you don't understand esoteric things, you will think that there must be some hollow place inside the physical. But it's not really about a physical world and something inside of it physically. It's talking about what is the inside, which is spiritual. It's a consciousness. And the demons don't live inside the earth. They live inside us as lower carnal thoughts, urges. Every human being has mind or spirit. We can have higher spiritual things inside of us. We can have angels coming and going. We can have demons that can come and visit, or negative thoughts, doubts, hate, lust. Those are spirits, meaning they are beliefs, thoughts, and ideas. And when you have demonic ideas, because you believe you're deceived by the devil, Diablo. Diablo means the double. So you have a double. You have a Diablo. You have to understand that Diablo isn't evil. Diablo must submit to the higher consciousness so they can act in harmony and in oneness. And therefore, the physical world, the snake, the baby, the little child, which is the Christ child, will play in the hole of the cobra. And this will be an eternal paradise. Body and soul eternally joined in perfect felicity. The absolute fullness of joy is spirit and matter joining inseparably forever in harmony. And that is frequency, the higher frequency, the harmony. I mean, you don't like music that's blah, 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 blah. You got to have harmony. It's got to make a sound that is melody. A certain vibration that turns you on. A vibration that brings into mind the positive. But you use the physical, which could be chaotic, if it was not wed to the spiritual. Both of them are necessary. You're actually going to live most of the time in the conscious. That's the more important. You decorate it with jewels, robed in white. You're going to pull back the veil and you're going to open up to more. And both sides are going to submit. Your higher consciousness isn't going to completely take over. It wants to live and be with the lower consciousness and work through the lower consciousness. So think about this. Jesus' father was Adam, the Ancient of Days. He is the son of man, the son of Adam. Well, then that would make Jesus human, wouldn't it? What does that mean? Immortal from Adam. Well, he also has a mother. His mother is Eve. As we said, Eve is where we get the word evening. So that's the side going down, which is the conscious mind in the lower. Now, Adim was both male and female. Adaim. There's the two sides. Well, once they were cut in half, then Ada and Eve were separated. Ada is the spiritual mind, the higher consciousness that's now separated from his conscious mind. So Jesus is a combination of the spiritual and the physical. That's why it says that he is the son of his father, because he were trying to let you know he was human, he was mortal. But he was also, remember, he had a mother. And she's the spirit, because he says, I'm going to send to you the spirit, feminine gender, the helper, the helpmate that was there for Adam. The helpmate was taken from Adam, from his rib or from his side, the other half. But that doesn't mean somebody physically split Adam in half. It means that the spiritual side and the physical side were separated. It's a spiritual and a physical, friends. And so Christ is not only physical, or Jesus wasn't just physical from Adam, but he was also spiritual from Eve, from Sophia, the mother, who was the spiritual counterpart to Eve. And the counterpart to Adam was the spiritual Heavenly Father. So every human being, because Jesus is our elder brother, we're all the only begotten of the Father and the Divine Mother. We're all begotten of the physical and the spiritual. And when we learn to become one in our consciousness and receive the Christ, which is the higher, remember, Jesus died on a cross. And the higher conscious, the Father, the Spirit, and the Mother, and his higher spiritual being was that other realm that he was, in his spiritual being. That's what raised up his physical being and made it alive. And now he has an immortal physical body. So he is both physical and spiritual, as we all are. So these materialists, like all the religions today that don't understand any longer the spiritual things, because they don't have the initiation of the truth. They take things literally. Like Job's Witnesses says there's going to be a paradise earth, but they don't believe in heaven. They don't understand what heaven is. They think it's someplace else that they're going to go. That 144,000 are going to go somewhere. To heaven, right? They don't realize that heaven is going to come down to earth. But the German scientists were the same. They started this Vril society. And remember, there are always societies. And by the way, in 1957 or something, or 58 or 9, Brother Noor, the president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, said from the pulpit that they, the Jehovah's Witnesses, were trying to bring in a new world society. It's funny because they call it the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, but they literally used the phrase, the New World Society, for many, many years. I don't think they use it so much anymore. They changed their lingo a lot. What is Vril? Because that was a society in Germany. It was a cult that was very earthly, like Jehovah's Witnesses, and believed in these things. But they had no authority. But they were getting their knowledge. They were getting knowledge from seances, from John Dee and Edward Kelly in Bavaria, as we mentioned. Well, what did Satan want them to believe? That he didn't want them to believe that these beings they were talking to were spirits, that were devils from hell, from the lower realm. So he tried to make them believe that this lower realm was physically under the earth. And so they were told by the devils that the earth was hollow and there was an alien being, a Vril, that had come long before, millions of years in the past, like before dinosaurs and things, in ancient history, there were beings prior to humans. They own the earth, not us. And they are the ones that secretly guide human history. And they are the gods. And the Germans worshipped them and got direction from them and instructions from them and made UFOs and all of this. They don't know it, but I will tell you the truth. They were creating Star Wars. That's what Reagan told us. And what is Star Wars? To defend the earth from an alien invasion. That's what Reagan said. The alien invasion is their words, how they understand it. They think they're going to have to fight Jesus, but they don't know that Jesus is the divine spiritual part of all of us. They're fighting against themselves. They're ignorant fools. They're materialists. And so they're fighting against some beings they think live in the earth. But they're not in the earth. They're in the material, elemental form as lower conscious beings within matter. They're spirit. They're not in a hollow earth. So they called their capital Agartha. Okay, what is that? Remember Gog of Magog? That's also where we get God. He's the ruler. Og, king of Bashan. Bashan is the mountain range where Mount Hermon is. This is where the Tyre Phoenician Ugaritic texts talk about this mountain, the mountain of El. He had two sons, Jesus and the devil, And that's talked about in Isaiah 14. And one of the brothers was Jehovah, and one of them was Jesus. And Jehovah said, I reign in hell, and I'm going to throw you to hell because you think you're like the Most High, the spiritual. So I'm the lower and you're the spiritual. This is the same thing was in the Ugaritic text. So Agartha, Eartha, is the earth. And the Agartha, or the Gog, is the ruler of the lower realm, or the physical, or the material. And so, all of these words go back to the root words. Shambhala, Agartha, all of them. Yes, the Germans believed in the hollow, or some of them, in the real society. And Hitler may or may not have believed that. Probably his people did. They searched. They went to Antarctica. They went to the North Pole. They were trying to find entrances into the whole. They thought maybe it was up in Tibet. There was a big opening into the hell. Native Americans talk about the people that lived under the ground or in a cave. But it's a symbol of the demons in the dark places. I know that most of you know this. We used to know this until materialism has taken over the world in cults like modern Kabbalism. And by the way, I'll show you a picture here, but Donald Trump studied under a Judean Talmudic Kabbalist. And his religion is Kabbalism. Yes, he went to Norman Vincent Peale's church, the Power of Positive Thinking. They don't have a problem with believing in that. They believe in that. They think they're really getting in deep as something, but yet they can't put down the whiskey and the wild, wild women and the lust, and so they'll never reach the esoteric plateaus that they wish. But they think that through mesmerism they can gain it. This is why Trump's always saying over and over again some positive, like, I'm going to build that wall and make Mexico pay for it. But he would just keep saying it, even if it was ridiculous. I didn't have sex with that woman. If you say stuff, it makes people believe it. And if you say it over and over again, it's some kind of mesmerism. That's what they believe. They use the lower magic, the dark magic. And that is Kabbalah. And they hate Christians. Kabbalists hate Christians. And only Judeans from the elite families know the real truth about the Kabbalah, like Lady Gaga. And what was it? The other singer, Madonna, who was talking about it, because they're little children. They get pulled into this thing called the Illuminati, and they're trying to imagine it's good. And the higher ups don't ever really teach them anything, but they deceive them. All of the people like Bill Gates and all these elite individuals walking around, probably ignorant fools, Just like when I was a Jehovah's Witness and I watched people thinking they were doing righteous things, doing God's service by murdering people and disfellowshipping and excommunicating and all the evil that they're doing. They think they're doing it for good. They're deceived. And their religion is deceived. And now I see the guy over on the Israeli news, he's getting into flat earth and hollow earth. And none of this is true. The real truth is that there is no time and space. The earth isn't round or flat. It's our home. It's a manifestation of our mind. And we can change it. We can move mountains with our word. That is the true teaching. That is the enlightened truth. And if you want to get on board with truth, then you've got to stop talking about hollow earths and flat earths and somehow physical aliens inside the earth or outside of the earth, because there are none. In the universe, there's only consciousness. And wherever you and I are, because we are consciousnesses, we can be influenced by the lower and the higher. And there's only one place in the universe, and that's here, baby. Because consciously, if we're here talking to each other consciously, we're on the earth. The thing about that is the demons, they are not able, they're lower than the physical. They're the spiritual influences of the lower nature. So yeah, the Germans, they followed a ignorant cult. They were being hoodwinked by demons, and there are many Satanists and all kinds of cults all over the world that believe in these things. And if you look into it, you'll see that they were being deceived. And modern scientists know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the earth is not hollow. Sir Isaac Newton, 500 years ago, proved that the earth cannot be hollow because we came up with the concept of mass. It's geometry. It's calculus. He invented with someone else. He shared the inventing of calculus, which wasn't inventing it, but was an understanding of ancient spiritual philosophy, astrology, that teaches all of this ancient wisdom. But Sir Isaac Newton understood it was a spiritual thing. It was not about some hollow earth. And so he showed that the earth, if it were hollow, wouldn't have enough mass to make gravity. Gravity comes when an object has more mass. It's heavier because it has not necessarily bigger, because feathers are pretty big, but they just float. Well, they don't have any mass. They're not heavy. So weight has to do with gravity, and it has to do with more mass. And because we're sticking to the earth, we know that the earth isn't hollow. It has to have a great deal of mass. We have scientific information today that you have to accept, or you're a fool. There is no hollow earth because it is not going to line up with the physical facts. Anyway, guys, I had been rambling on, and I'd done some more already on this video, but I'm going to stop it here because you're well over an hour, and I'm going to put the rest of what I've already spoken into this contraption here. I'm going to load that one tomorrow. That'll be part 2. Stay tuned because it's some very interesting information. You guys, I hope you have a wonderful evening. May the Lord bless you. Be prepared. Get ready, friends. Jesus is coming soon. We'll see you tomorrow.